And fundamentally, I'm a developer. Actually, if we really go down to it, I'm a writer. I love to write stories. And it so turned out that writing code is very much like writing stories. This is where we start with a pure and good understanding of the history of compute and our relationship as humans with computers. You are now holding some of the most precious things in the world. Not only are you holding the physical chips, like again, we're going to talk about chips. We're going to have a whole conversation about silicone chips. The first thing is the mindset that says, I go and get information.
Yeah.
I don't wait for information to come to me.
Welcome back to the Truth Talk podcast. My name is Larreth Jimu and I'm your host. And today we are joined by Mr. Sizwe from Pillowtech. And we're going to go deep into cloud. Like, what is the cloud? What is compute? What is AWS? And all these things that you guys have probably heard of, but you're not really sure, what it is all about. And before we start, little disclaimer, this episode is sponsored by the best coding school in the world, Microsoft Academy, of course. And yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, by the way. But yeah, now that we've got the formalities, Mr. Sizwe, thank you so much for coming.
A great pleasure. It's been a long time coming.
It has. Yeah, for those that don't know you, please just tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got into the cloud space.
Hello, everybody. My name, as he has said, is Sizwe Mabanga. And fundamentally, I'm a developer. Actually, if we really go down to it, I'm a writer. I love to write stories. And it so turned out that writing code is very much like writing stories. So I got into coding from a very, I would say a young age. I've been coding for in excess of 20 years now. Having started around 2002. So 22 years of coding now, and I'm still coding. And somewhere along the way, I decided that, coding is lovely, but I needed to sort of spread my wings a little bit. And I took a 3-month sabbatical to reinvent myself. And in that time, I got an opportunity to go and help Google start a distribution arm in Africa for their cloud business. So Google Cloud wanted to, sort of start a distribution arm, and they needed to start that whole business up. And I was one of the engineers that was brought in to help in that effort. And yeah, that's how I got introduced to the world of cloud. And it's been an amazing journey since then. I've learned so much. It really opened up the world. In fact, yes, it justified the sabbatical I took. To say sometimes you've just got to take that break and reinvent yourself. And how I reinvented myself was figuring out the world of cloud and how it segued into code. And amazingly, it has really just even accelerated my entire career.
Interesting. So what is cloud?
Yeah. So this is where we start with a pure and good understanding of the history of compute and our relationship as humans with computers, right?
Okay.
We've been walking this lovely journey, and it's not that long ago. It's not like we've been walking a journey with computers for 100 years. No, it's less than 100 years we've been walking. Obviously, if we talk about Ada Lovelace, yes, we've been walking that journey since then. But what I'm actually talking about is the public consumption of computers, where public people are able to buy a computer and bring it into their home and do computations on their own or interface with a computer. We've been walking this journey with it, where we started with these humongous computers, and it's been getting smaller and smaller. And then corporations really started to leverage computers in a way that has changed how corporations actually work, and accelerated the nature of business. We would not have any of the things that we are currently having, where we've got these humongous malls, we've got logistics that are happening all over the world, people are flying. None of that would happen without computers. computers are at the core of our modern society. Now, and again, this is a very recent development for humanity, these computers, right? And how we first started consuming computers as corporations is corporations would buy their own computers and create their own servers, right?
Yeah.
And server rooms. And these server rooms would have these big racks filled with servers, and you'd see these cords all over the place, these network cords, and they'd be really, really cold, and they'd be downstairs. You'd be at the big Standard Bank or Investec or whatever company's offices, but if you went downstairs, you'd find this big white server rooms. For some reason, they always painted them completely white for some reason. and that's where the term white space comes from in the world of cloud. You can purchase white space, which is an empty server room, and then you introduce your own racks. But I digress. And that's how compute was being consumed at that point. Corporations were buying their own computers. And as time went by and they started to depend on computers more and more, they started to realize exactly how much of their time and energy is going into running these server rooms, to the point where the costs and the effort around it was competing with their actual business. You're an insurance company. You're not an IT company, but your IT concerns are now competing with your business concerns.
Yeah.
Right?
Now you're acting like an IT company.
Exactly. So public cloud is something that addresses that. It ensures that companies, these humongous companies, can actually, instead of behaving like an IT company and taking care of servers and having to worry about how to keep this room cold, how to pay for all this electricity that these things consume and keep disaster recovery up and running and all that type of stuff, they abstract all that away so that banks can be banks. Insurance companies can be insurance companies. Accountancy firms can be accountancy firms without having to be an IT company as well. That's the beauty of cloud. Now, how they've done that is that they've built these humongous campuses, right? Sometimes like a Google campus for cloud computing is often as big as a football field. That is a lot of computers in a space, right?
That's a lot.
That's a ridiculous amount.
Like, I'm just trying to understand. If you're saying the size of a football field and that's all computers, and maybe like the average person's computer is what size? Maybe the size of this tablet or slightly bigger. But then you're saying that these guys have computers the size of a football field, and also they're big, they're tall.
The computers it's more about the number of computers than the size of the computers. So the computers themselves tend to look like those servers that you would have seen at an Investec or whatever. They would be a thin little rack like this. There's a bunch of blipping little lights, but then there's a shit ton of them.
Just so many.
A row of them. You'd be going down and there'd be thousands of them. One inside, and there's different types. Some are, sort of old school machines that have the old type of discs, and then you go to the other side, and then they've got the new school machines that have the new type of discs that are a little bit more expensive. But it's this humongous place that is already all set up and ready for you to just start bringing up your server.
Wow,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's generally what cloud is. Cloud is those big campuses that are physical, actual places. I think sometimes people, because of the word cloud, they think of it as a bit of an ephemeral thing, and they can't conceptualize it. But it's a physical place. It's just there's also a lot of security around it. They don't want you to know where it is
Why is that? Why do they not want you to know? Like, we know we have an AWS farm
security.
in Cape Town. Yeah.
Because of security. You are now holding some of the most precious things in the world. Not only are you holding the physical chips, like again, we're going to talk about chips. We're going to have a whole conversation about silicone chips and how they are pretty much the new currency. They are a currency unto themselves. That's really a lot of money
Yeah.
right there in terms of value. But then you're also holding the world's data, right? So you can't let people know. I mean, it would be the first place any sort of intelligent terrorist would attack.
Yeah.
So you've got to keep that incredibly secret.
Sure. Of course. Of course. Okay, so now these banks, these insurance companies, these large organizations, they don't have their own servers, or maybe they dropped from 100% managing their own to maybe they're just managing 10%, 20%, and they outsource everything to these big, giant cloud companies. Why the trust? How do they trust that Amazon or Google or Microsoft won't do something weird with their data? Is it, I don't know.
No. So security has become very strong. The idea of a security key is a guarantee that you are the only one that can see your data. Part of the contract of cloud is that even if they wanted to, they could not access your data. The key for accessing that data resides with you and you alone. Google couldn't if they wanted to. They've built it into, or AWS and Azure. They've built it into how the darn thing operates, that for them it just looks like sort of sections of zeros and ones that they can't even interpret because they don't have the key. Who has the key? You, the security key, which is sort of always random and different for every single client. So they don't even have the computational power to figure it out. And then over and above that, it's also what they call sharded, which is to say, they probably don't even know where your data is sitting themselves. The algorithm that decides where your data is stored is, sort of a little bit on the random side. It's just like, hey, we're going to put a piece of your data over here and then another piece of your data over there. So even they can access the physical data, they can't unencrypt it, nor can they get all of it in one place. Sometimes it's just little bits all over the place. And it only starts to make sense when you put it together, when you access your cloud account and your cloud console comes up or your application comes up. At that point, it all gets brought together and starts to make sense.
That is brilliant. That is the most remarkable thing I've ever heard. Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm digesting.
Digest, sir. Digest. That's why they trust. And also, obviously, then there's the backup side of things, right? I mean, they always keep your data in multiple locations. I mean, even these big businesses always had to have a disaster recovery strategy where they've got a main site and then they've got a disaster recovery site. If their main site gets compromised, they can bring up all of their compute again in that disaster recovery site. This happens automatically with cloud. Cloud has the most amazing disaster recovery because in any of region, they will generally have 3 what they call availability zones. Now, the availability zone is actually that data center that's like a football field that I was telling you about. And that availability zone will have, sort of there'll be a primary one, but it'll keep copies of your data in the other availability zone, possibly sometimes in the other one as well, depending on, sort of how critical your data is and how much you want to make sure that it never. And then you can even keep your data in another region so that, sort of if Cape Town gets hit by an atom bomb, your stuff is still up in Ireland. I mean, you're a little bit worried because why was Cape Town hit by an atom bomb? But your data's still in Ireland. You're still operational.
So what's the biggest difference between these big cloud platforms? Because you've got Google, you've got AWS, Microsoft, Huawei. What is the big difference between these?
I must say it's what they call their stuff. Really, it's a naming thing. They really largely do the same thing. And some of them are even based off the same software stacks, right? Like things like Kubernetes and all of that type of stuff is pretty much a standard across these things. So what you find is that these guys might call it AKS, Azure Kubernetes Service, to EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service on AWS, but it really largely operates the same, has the same sort of capabilities. So there's very little that really differentiates them. What really tends to make clients choose one or another is pricing. Things like pricing, things like, I already have an agreement with Microsoft, so I don't want to go get a new new agreement with AWS or Google. So I'll just, use Azure, things like that. Those are the things that actually drive adoption on one cloud or another. But from a technology perspective, they really tend to be quite similar.
Okay. So let's say I'm the CEO of Standard Bank and I'm hosting my stuff on no, okay. Let's say I'm a startup founder and I'm hosting my stuff on AWS, right? And maybe I'm doing legal or illegal things. Does cloud also cater to the stuff that we see on the dark web? Can anyone host anything, or do they have certain ethics behind what sort of data they can store?
Dark web is a little different. So generally, the dark web is a separate network that has its own protocols and certain connections. So you would not be able to host that on AWS or anything like that. They'd pick that up immediately if you tried to like create some sort of type of connection that it's not even capable of. They know that they interface with HTTPS and all of those types of connections. So one of the things that they really just don't like, you can do all sorts of illegal things on there, and they're not really interested about that. I think the dark web, like I said, it's just a little of a separate network that these guys operate within the worldwide web that we currently all operate on. And even there, you can do illegal things, right?
Yeah.
And they won't care about that. What they really, really don't like is when you use their hardware to do Bitcoin mining.
Oh.
Yeah, they hate that. They hate that with
why? Why is it because they probably have the biggest Bitcoin mines in the world as well? Because of all the server power.
It's because it ties the value of their services to the cost of Bitcoin and stuff like that. And when Bitcoin is cheap, people will buy Google servers and keep them busy doing that type of stuff. And that can tie up a lot of servers such that a lot of people who might otherwise want to do legit business on there can't actually do that.
Yeah.
So they've just decided that if they pick up that you are doing some sort of Bitcoin mining and there's a signature to it that you can pick up on, then they will shut your operation down.
And what about Bitcoin itself? Is it stored on some server somewhere? Or I'm not really a blockchain expert.
Yes. Bitcoins are stored on servers somewhere, and the whole idea is you use compute in order to unlock bitcoins. Because if you throw enough compute at a sort of the algorithm, the Bitcoin algorithm, you can unlock, you can figure out, oh, this is the key for this Bitcoin, because each Bitcoin has a key. When you are a Bitcoin owner, you have the key, that security key that we were discussing.
Yeah.
You have the key for that Bitcoin, right? And you could basically keep just trying various combinations of letters and stuff like that until you hit something that says, oh, this is an actual Bitcoin key. And then boom, you've unlocked the Bitcoin and you've unlocked Bitcoin value. That's Bitcoin mining. That's what Bitcoin mining is. That's you just throwing.
Okay. All right, let's go back. I want to go back to the actual cloud itself, right? So it's an evolving technology. Where is it now in terms of maturity? Do you feel like we have reached the peak of what cloud can do? What's your feeling towards that?
It's really early days. It's really early days. Again, our industry, computing, software, all of that is a really, really young industry. It is 70 years old and yet has become central to our lives. And even when people have made grandiose statements like computing has reached its upper limit, they are proven wrong consistently.
Yeah.
Because we are discovering new ways to do compute. We're doing quantum computing. We're trying to figure out how we can, instead of using electrical switches, we can use photon switches instead to do our compute, which would actually increase our compute power by a ridiculous amount. The horizon is not even visible for what we are still going to achieve with computers.
And what's
and cloud
driving
computing.
that evolvement? What's driving? Let's talk about the silicon chips that you mentioned. Let's start from, what is a chip for those that don't know? Like, our Africans will know that these chips are mined here in Africa,
Yes.
right? But we don't
The
get to see.
materials are mined here, go over there, they get turned into this amazing little thing that can actually then think, right? That's what this thing actually does. It's a thinking thing.
Okay.
That, you tell it, think like this, and then it does that for you. And then it gets sold back to us Africans. We're very far downstream from that.
Did you see the iPhone 16 price and the outrage on the internet that it's going for 20K in America, but it's 42K here? People are like, what the heck is that?
I don't want to talk about it. Hurts my feelings. Right. But because compute is a very precious commodity, and we need to start internalizing that as a people, that if we want to succeed as a continent, we need to take that very seriously. We need to start building our own chip manufacturing factories, and also contribute in this journey that humanity is on towards greater and greater levels of harnessing this power. So if we think about what a chip is, right? A chip is a decision-making mechanism, and it uses bits. And I don't want to get into computer science theory.
Yeah.
But what it is that it's gotten to the point where the technology is able to create a really, really thin wire. This incredibly nanomillimeter thin wire is then, sort of created, and then they compress all of those little wires into this tiny little thing, right? And then that's what's in your computer making decisions. So you send it a question, and it does its zeros and ones thing, and then comes up with another thing on the other side and says, yeah, this is what it is. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. It can do that with like in milliseconds, right? Like, and it's because of these tiny, tiny little wires.
And it went from being such a huge thing that takes time to being such a tiny thing that does it in a short space of time.
Exactly.
And it's
To
gonna
the
keep
point where-
getting. Is it gonna keep getting smaller?
Yes, they are. So there's a lot of debate around of how small it can get, right? They're looking for new materials. Right now, we're still using various types of like silicone and sort of ferrous metals. But now they are trying to introduce things like graphene and graphite. The stuff that's inside a pencil that allows them and to really do so much more. Carbon actually is, sort of a conductor of electricity, but carbon has such an interesting structure that it can even get thinner than you can with metal, right? And that means that they can get even thinner, and then the chip could get even smaller. But what that would then mean is that you can then have more compute power in the same size chip. So your phone could then start having the same computing power as, a server, a humongous server. That's where we're going to. And then again, like we said, that's one avenue of research. The other one is where they're looking to use photons. So we know fiber cables, right? Mm-hmm. Fiber cables transmit information over the internet lots much faster than metal cables. Like they just because it's light. It's not electrons. Photons are at this traveling at the speed of light.
Yeah.
Electrons are fast, but they're not that fast, right? And now they're trying to figure out how they can actually then also use that same model to make chips. They haven't figured it out yet, how to actually store those little photons and all that type of stuff, or get them to be proper decision gates, for zeros and ones and all that type of stuff. That's where they're still struggling, but they're going to get it right. They'll get it right. And the moment they do, we are going to have the craziest computing power available to us.
I can only imagine just looking at the rate and the pace at which technology has evolved over the last 10, 15, 20 years because of these chips. Like now we have these phones that we can just walk around and we can literally do anything, but no one ever spends time to think what's actually inside this, what's actually driving.
It's as good as magic.
I think it is magic.
It is magic.
It has to be.
Look, the definition of magic should really simply be anything that the masses don't understand. Really. So if we're saying Zeus could hit people with lightning, that was probably some sort of type of technology that the people didn't understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I agree. I was having a chat with one of my friends and we were talking about that exactly. It was the exact topic was ChatGPT, right? Because when it came out, for me personally, the first time I saw ChatGPT, I was like, wow, I've never seen anything like this ever. You're telling me I can send emails, I can create plans, I can pretty much any operational thing that I do, I can do it with this one software. How did these guys even start to make this?
Oh, is that an actual question?
No. Because I was thinking, what knowledge do these people have? Where do you start? You say, I want to build this thing called OpenAI, and then I'm going to give other people access. Where do you start? And my conclusion was they must have some sort of a higher power that tells them what to code. I don't know. We believe in that.
The higher power is us. What we're modeling is ourselves. We are the ultimate example of compute. This conversation we're having is between two massive computes inside these organic flesh bodies.
Yeah.
But your brain is a compute model. We have the ultimate example. We're not really inventing anything new. We're just doing it slightly differently. And indeed, if we go into the biblical side of things, there's that story of how who had started to try and create something that is similar to humans.
I should know this.
But that's where we're going. What do we think we're going to be doing when we create these robots that, or androids rather, that are, sort of walking around like us and can talk the way ChatGPT can talk and all of that type of stuff and interact with us in a way that is very human-like? That is a biblical story of, somebody was punished by God for that. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, no, God doesn't play.
Right?
If he messes laws, he's gonna strike you. But Old Testament God was just on another level.
Well, we're doing it again. It seems we don't learn.
No, we don't. No, we don't. So this whole thing is to replace humanity at some point, or is it to merge?
Not replace. I think we have an innate, it's this curiosity. Curiosity killed the cat, right? So we have an innate curiosity that has us doing things without really considering the implications, the end game, what's going to play out, and all that type of stuff. We've all seen those movies that show how maybe our advances in technology then end up being the reason why civilization falls apart and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
That's where that curiosity killed the cat comes from. We are barreling towards advancement, but advancement to where?
To where? Because what I'm just baffled. What is the end game? Because I'm sure there are people out there, the people that are driving this, surely they know stuff that we don't know.
I don't think so. I think they have a profit motive. I think all of them are operating in little capitalist silos that if we can do this and turn it into a service, we're going to be rich, right? And that's a big driver for a lot of not so good human behavior.
True.
That's a lot of, and in that time, it's not amoral what they're doing, but the cumulative effects of it all start to play out in a way that is detrimental to humanity.
This is a sad state of affairs. I mean, it's cool now. We're having fun.
No, and it's lovely, ChatGPT. But ChatGPT is busy learning.
Yeah.
Every time you ask it to do something, it gets smarter.
Yeah, and now they've got that whole memory feature. Now it can keep, literally, you can log out, log back in, and continue the conversation on a new chat.
Especially if you pay.
Yeah. So who's the ultimate power when it comes to this stuff? Is it the person that holds the data, i.e. your AWS, your Azure, or is it the person that writes the algorithm for ChatGPT, or is it the person that manufactures the chip? Because without the chip, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I think it's a combination of the above, really. And if you're able to do all of that, then you are a beast.
Or you own the world.
Yeah. Then you are the most dangerous creature out there.
Yeah.
Right? You can manufacture the chips, you can gather the data, and then you can distribute it for consumption by the public. Oh my God, you may as well be God. A God.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know everything about everyone. You know what's in their bank accounts. You know what they had for lunch. You probably know them much more than they know themselves. You can predict their behaviors.
Yes.
With 100% accuracy.
Yes. You can actually know that this person has a craving for X every once month. You haven't picked up this about yourself.
Yeah.
That you have this craving. You just think, oh, I'm so spontaneous. I'm gonna go have an ice cream. You are not spontaneous.
My goodness. Oh, this is scary because I'm sure there are evil corporations out there. Obviously, you like what you said, profit driven. They don't care about anything else. It's profit, profit, profit.
Yeah. So, and I've been having a lot of philosophical thoughts about the true nature of evil because, I mean, have you ever really met an evil person? I haven't.
It's very no. You don't. They don't show you.
I don't think they are. I think they are people who, in their own world, they think they're doing what's right. They have a story in their head around how this is going to play out well. Maybe they have a greater good story that maybe sometimes in order to make an egg, you have to, I mean, make an omelet, you have to break some eggs. I don't really meet evil people. And when people have characterized somebody as evil and then I talk to them, I find that no, maybe the person has a backstory of how they've suffered and they've realized blah, blah, blah. And I take that quite seriously. You know, people are never like, I'm a bad guy.
Yeah.
Consciously. They're like, I'm protecting myself.
They always have reasons.
Right? It's either I'm protecting myself or you will see in the end what I was trying to do and you will benefit from it too. Right? There's always some sort of story along those lines. So even then, the idea of an evil corporation is something we need to investigate quite clearly and understand how it came to be what it is. What makes up that whole evil concept of that corporation? I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot that we don't know, and I feel like there's a lot that we'll never know, especially since most of the things nowadays are so abstracted. The abstraction is just insane.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist, like through and through, right? I just didn't bring my tinfoil hat. I'm looking to line this hat with with tinfoil just to keep the. But at the same time, like I said, even as a conspiracy theorist, I also recognize that those that I feel are the ones driving humanity into a horrible corner will have a story as to why they're doing what they're doing. And if you are a compassionate person with an ear, you'll understand it. You know?
What role can Africa play in this wave of technology that we're entering?
Look, we have to start taking extreme ownership of every aspect of our lives. We've started to take a lot of our lives for granted, like these phones and these chips that are in our pockets, and we don't know what they actually do, but we use them as if they're, sort of, yeah, well, we just take them for granted.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, who is making those chips? And why are you getting mad that the iPhone is being charged at 40,000? You don't make that thing. They get to determine the price because it's their technology.
Yeah.
You haven't got anything that vaguely even competes with that. So if we as Africans want to really be taken seriously on any level, we'd have to start building our own of everything.
Oof. And how far are we? I mean, because we do have these amazing tech startups that come out of Africa that then become global sensations, right? We do have them, but it's not the norm.
It's not the norm. And You have a guy who, whatchamacallit, says, I've built a phone and I've branded it. I call it e-phone. Whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then you figure out what his business model is that he gets it built in China,
Of course.
imports it here, brands it, and sells it. So that's where we're really, really suffering. We don't have the know-how locally, the infrastructure to build these things ourselves, and so that we can consume them ourselves. We could be crippled tomorrow if the world decided that, fuck Africa. They can't have compute anymore.
Are we that dependent on the West
And the East.
and the East?
Yes, we are ass out. Like, we are naked.
Wow.
We think we are clothed, but we are not.
Wow.
It is wild. It is wild. And so there's a whole journey we've got to walk. We've got to first understand the technology and having 5 professors in these various universities who understand computing like from the bottom up is not us understanding it. It has to be a widespread. Like the way I'm talking about compute now, I need these 10-year-old kids to understand it.
So education is number one right now. We need education.
Yes, and we've got to own that. We've got to own that education. They've got to be able to talk about that nesiZulu. Bathi cha, yabona ke mangikhanyisa la uqale ukuthi bese hey, yabo hlangani. Yabona, that's where we need to get to. It's got to become part of who we are, because you best believe that's what's happening in China.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. Of course.
So we've got a long road to walk before we are having our own Zulu cloud.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sibiza mafu. Aw. Cha, ngalayita iserver kumafu. Yabo?
What a journey. I mean,
Bro,
I can't even imagine in my lifetime that happening. Just look at.
Yeah.
Do you think that I don't know. I just don't see it. I think a big issue that we have as Africans, like you were saying, is that we just don't care. We don't care.
Yeah, we've gotten used to being consumers. We love consumption.
Yeah.
And we've been bred into that to some degree, and our leaders are not leading us away from that. That's what a true African leader would do. They would lead us away from this consumption-based approach to everything that we currently have, to a production-based one.
So let's say I'm a guy, I'm 18, 19 years old, and I'm listening to this conversation and I want to get started in cloud or in computing in general. What's the best step? What's the best route that someone like me can take?
So let's assume you don't have money, right?
Yeah.
Because money is often the main blocker. So I want to take it out of the equation.
Okay.
I mean, if you do have money, I would say go talk to Larreth.
Yeah, perfect.
Right? Yeah. Larreth will sort you out. He'll get you, you'll get a course, and then 6 months down the line or a year down the line, you'll have a good understanding of all this stuff.
Yeah.
But in the absence of money, and do whatever you can to get onto the internet and educate thyself. There is a ridiculous amount of content that is freely available.
That's true.
On the internet. And now you just go onto YouTube and search, what is cloud? what is AWS? Like, really, you have no one to blame if you don't know what cloud is other than yourself. And you're consuming cloud every day. When you have a Gmail account, that's you consuming the cloud,
Yeah.
right? Everybody has a Gmail account. In fact, even that very same YouTube lives in the cloud. So you've got to take the initiative to understand the things that you are consuming and how they work. Just like you were saying with ChatGPT. What is this thing? What does it mean for us? Why are we just consuming it without understanding it?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Get onto the internet, do research. Like, one of the most important skills that anybody can have in life is the ability to research things themselves. This is whether, in fact, even if you do have money, this is a skill that everybody needs to have. Oh, I'm at zero information now. I'm going to get to information. And this is how I'm going to do it. If you don't have that in you, you're going to suffer in this life. You're always going to be told. People are going to lie to you.
You're right. Because I see that a lot with our students. You have two types of students. You have the guys that want to learn and they go out there, whatever, you give them a problem, you give them some material, and obviously you don't give them all the material, you give them 60% so that they have to go out there and research. They just go, they do the research, they bring it back, they solve the problem, boom. Then you get the other group of people that would be like, oh no, we paid so much for this course. Why are we not getting everything? Why are we not getting, oh no, why do I have to go to YouTube?
Spoon-fed.
They want to be spoon fed. And it's always the first type of person that it's easy for them to pick up a job or pick up a client or whatever goal they have for themselves. Whereas the other person just complain.
Exactly.
And I think it starts, it's just the mindset is wrong.
And that's, you've hit it on the knob, sir. The mindset is what has got to change if you want to figure things out in life. That's the first thing. Then there's all sorts of courses available, certifications that you can get that will show people that, hey, this person really does understand this stuff, right? But the first thing is the mindset that says, I go and get information.
Yeah.
I don't wait for information to come to me, right?
Yeah. So let's say with this now, what are the types of career paths that someone in the cloud can take? What are the different roles that are available out there? And do we have enough people that are filling these roles?
We don't have enough people. We are, like we said, we're at the beginning of this whole cloud journey. Even if we all decided, we're going to learn some cloud and actually, become cloud engineers, we would still probably be adding to the value of cloud and not saturating the industry. That industry has ridiculous growth potential, right? It's like when software was starting out. I doubt anybody realized that software engineering was going to become such a fundamental role in our lives. And you've got our kids wanting to become software engineers instead of doctors and all of that type of stuff, and lawyers, right? It's going to be the same with cloud. Cloud is, and here's the beauty of cloud, right? Because like we said, it used to be these corporations hiring people and all of that type of stuff to run their servers for them. And that was their career, running a server for business A or business B. In cloud, there's this whole democratization that happens that says, we are making this available to the public. It is not this closed room that only Squibus and Sipho have access to. It is something that everybody can access. You can now, today, tomorrow, go and open up a cloud account yourself. So that's a democratization. That is an amazing change to how we are consuming this stuff. And what that means is that all sorts of new businesses can come out of that. Now, to your question, what kind of roles are there? So there's the basic cloud engineer. A cloud engineer is just somebody who can help you get onto the cloud and start consuming compute. They'll set up a virtual machine, sort of set up the network around it so that it's safe and all that type of stuff, and set up the storage where your data is going to be stored, whether that's a database or a bucket for static data or a file system of some variety. Those are cloud engineers, right?
Okay.
But once you start getting into scale, right, then you start to need the smart guys. The smart guys are the guys who come in and say, I'm a security engineer. I make sure that if you've got a lot of these different servers, that they're all protected. Because the more servers you have, the more of an attack surface you have. The more chances there are that this server X is exposing data that it shouldn't expose. So then you can have a security specialist whose job it is to make sure that that is not happening for your company at all. He sets policies, he runs scripts that actually check which ports are open, all of that type of stuff, right? Then you have DevOps engineers. DevOps engineers are basically how changes happen in your cloud. So anytime you are running a cloud space, you're obviously running software, right? And that software needs to evolve over time. A DevOps engineer, and sometimes now they're calling them DevSecOps engineers, is somebody who helps an organization automate and improve how those changes happen. It used to be this whole manual process, which was error prone and all of that type of stuff, where there would be a guy who copies files into that server, and then, oh no, why is it not coming up? Oh, I copied it into the wrong folder, blah, blah, blah. But DevOps, what they've introduced is these automated pipelines that actually just make sure that it's a repeatable, dependable process of how you make changes. And that increases the stability of your software, and the services that you are running with that software. So we've covered your standard engineer, we've covered your cloud security specialist, we've covered your DevOps guys. Then there's your data guys. And that's another broad field that also then has sections within it, because the AI guys, in my mind, are within the data space, right?
Yeah.
But that's a big, that data engineering space is possibly the most interesting part, because on top of these silicon chips and these disks that we're using, the most important thing that's on there is the data.
Yeah.
The data is the gold. That is the thing that has people who are in this industry salivating, because that's what makes you turn into money at the end of the day. That's where the insights come from. That's where the transactions are happening. So the data is where it's at. And data scientists are people who can actually turn that data into money. Well, help turn it into money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so many opportunities.
It's ridiculous. And again, it's a democratized space now. It's not this cloistered little thing where now you can, like I said, today you can start learning about data engineering, open up a cloud interface and start doing data things.
Oh. So why do we have such high unemployment? Why do we have so many people that are jobless, that don't do anything the whole day, but you've just described gold that's there to be mined? What's the problem in Africa? And it's an African problem.
It's what we discussed earlier. It's that we are consumers. We just consume too much. So because of that consumer mindset and being so far downstream from these technologies and the people that are actually creating them, but that by the time that they get to us, we again are just consuming. We're not part of the creative journey. We're not part of the so if we want to fix that unemployment problem, it has to start with that mindset of shifting away from consumer mindset to a production mindset. We need to create things, bruh. We need to create things for ourselves, and even if it is starting out as us consuming cloud, that's fine. But on the cloud, what you're doing is creating things. So the more things you can create on the cloud, and it's like the cloud is this humongous canvas where you can paint whatever that you want with compute, network, and storage, right? And we just need to get on there and do these things, and we may find that we become the best cloud engineers on the planet, right? If we embrace this technology as a people and then say we all want to learn how to become cloud engineers, we are well poised, because it's this early stage of this journey, to become how India took over the world of software engineering.
Yeah.
We could do the same with cloud. It's at that stage where if we made a conscious decision to say we want to be cloud engineers, we want to be data engineers, we want to be security specialists, we could take over that industry. We could export, like it could get to the point where even in America, if they know that if they want a good cloud engineer, go get them from Africa.
Yeah.
Right? Just like they know that, hey man, I want somebody who knows how to run software. They go get them from India.
Yeah.
they've even made a guy from a rural town in India the CEO of Google Cloud and Google, actually.
Yeah, Indians are owning America now. I mean, like what you've just said, the CEO of Google, CEO of Microsoft, CEO of, I don't know, all these big tech companies are Indians, because
They embraced it.
They embraced it. They were like, guys, look at this. Let's embrace it. From then they made the data cheap. They made sure that everyone in primary school learns it.
Government programs, all the different sectors pulled together to make sure that this happens. I'm sure there are entire families that are having software-based conversations at the dinner table.
Yeah.
You're 6 years old and you're hearing about exceptions in Java
Yeah.
at the dinner table. Don't you think you're going to grow up to be, even if you're not even a software developer when you grow up, you understand it?
You understand it. Yeah. Whew, there's just so much to cover. Just a few last questions. What based on your experience, what advice would you give to someone who wants to build a successful career in cloud computing?
No, I mean, we've actually covered that one already.
We have covered that.
Because we just said, guys,
Yeah.
you have to be a go-getter of information. That go-getting of information, it's there. It's there. You ask ChatGPT, like, guys, even in the world of software development, we don't even write our own code anymore. We just Google it.
Yeah.
It's all there. Somebody's already solved that problem. So you have to be somebody who can find information. If you can write the right question in a Google search bar, you are going to be successful in any career you choose, let alone cloud. Right? So it's one of the more fundamental skills. Being able to research things for yourself. And even then, once you are in your cloud career, you're still going to be always trying to find better ways to do things in the cloud. And that's going to be about you being able to research and find information. So that's the most important tool to you having a good career in anything, but in particular in cloud as well.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so angry. I'm so inspired, right? I'm inspired. I think now I'm gonna walk out of this with a different perspective on cloud, because I always knew that this thing is big, this thing is gonna grow. I mean, AWS wouldn't just come and set up shop in South Africa if they didn't see the potential of Africa playing a part in this entire movement. But now I'm actually gonna be more intentional with it, because if we, as the educators, and I'm an owner of a school, if I'm not actively pushing this, then who's gonna do it if I don't do it?
Yes, and we've got to pull all of these guys into this conversation. We've got to get the government to endorse this.
Yeah.
And make programs available that ensure that we are churning these guys out.
Yeah.
People who understand it and understand it at a very fundamental level as well, maybe even from the youngest age possible. How do we get it into our school curriculum? We've got to get militant about it.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. The last question that I have is from the previous guest, who was Curtis Young from Fixer. And this question to you is, what is one mistake that you've made in your career that allowed you to learn the most?
You know what? I like that question because I make mistakes all the time. And mistakes are exactly how I learn, and how anybody who's not making mistakes isn't learning, right? So that's a big philosophy of mine. But I was once working at one of these insurance companies. It was very, very, very early on in my career, right? And this was a leadership lesson for me, where I reran a job that failed. So my job was to look after these servers, right? And look at these screens as they, do what they're doing. They run, there's outputs on these screens, and these screens are going up. And then if there's an error, I need to figure out whether, is this a problematic error where I have to call the software developer, or do I just rerun it because it's something that happens quite regularly and we just rerun it and it just goes away, right? I made an error in discernment around that where I wasn't sure, and then I made the wrong choice and I said, I'm just going to rerun it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, that's the commissions run. I double paid commissions for thousands of people.
Whoa.
The financial implication was crazy, right?
Whoa, I can only imagine.
Right?
Yeah.
And the lesson in leadership that I took with me was how my boss reacted. Of course, he was really angry. I got called into the office and all that type of stuff. But what he said was, look, because I thought I was getting fired. But he said, no, you're obviously not getting fired, because now you've learned to listen. And it was a very expensive lesson. I'm not going to throw you away after you've learned a very expensive lesson. Right?
Yeah.
Because if I fire you and bring someone else, they're going to make that may say mistake.
Yeah.
But now you know not to make that bloody mistake. And you better not. And I didn't. And that's exactly the beautiful lesson of leadership that I've learned, that leadership is giving people the space to make those mistakes. It was an expensive lesson, but it is incredibly important that people have the space to make mistakes. Otherwise, they won't learn.
Brilliant. That's a brilliant lesson right there. And then do you have, what is your question to the next guest? The next person is going to come onto this.
Look, I think quite a lot about the future of, AI. And I'd like us to all start thinking about it in terms of what can we do to ensure that AI remains our servant and does not become our master. It would be such a subtle little change when it actually does happen, right? We wouldn't even notice it. We'd still think, oh my God, this thing is helping me. Meanwhile, it's leading you by the nose.
Yeah.
So I'd like us to start thinking about it, and I'd like your next guest to help me.
I hope he has an answer. I'm sure you have an answer, next guest, whoever you are. But Mr. Sizwe, thank you so much for this extremely value-packed session that we've just had here.
No, it was really fun too.
I would say this is definitely the most knowledgeable episode that we've had. It's completely brain-opening to think. And you see now, for me, the thing is, if I didn't know this, I'm just worried about like the average person. And yeah, that drive of education needs to start now.
We need more magicians
in Africa, and we will make them.
We are going to make
We'll
them.
make them. Cool.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one day I'll introduce. What's this? I'll call you to my podcast. Yes.
Yes, I can't wait for that. So thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you got some value. I'm sure you got some value. Do go out there, start learning, start improving, start educating yourself with these things that are happening, and you can change your life. You can change your family's life. You can change the continent's life by your own actions. So thank you so much for watching. Always remember that the truth shall set you free, and I'll catch you on the next episode.